We are all equal. It's time that we're all heard. Hello and welcome to A Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila Gamble. If at any point during this conversation you'd like to jump in and share your input, you could tweet me at MissJamPCCS, or you could email me at missjams.pcss@gmail.com. I always love to hear from you, and thank you to those of you who've taken the time to actually connect and reach out. Once again, backed by popular demand, is expert Susan, who's a teacher, by the way, here in Peel Region. So first off, thank you for what you do in Peel. And secondly, apparently you're really popular, so that's why you're back on the show.
Thanks for having me back.
No problem. If the people keep voting, we'll keep having you back. So this week, our topic, I'm sure this is something you will know a ton about. We're talking about occupational therapists within the school board. Have you had to deal with an OT? I know some schools don't even get them because of funding and things like that, but have you ever had to work with one?
Yes, I have in the past, but as you said, funding is a huge issue. So the board does need a lot more OTs working with our students to get them the devices and the services that they need.
I think what happens is that the OTs come into the school, they tell us what we need to know, and then as TAs, we become the OTs, the PTs, the speech and language, you name it, that's who we become. But we are talking to an OT tonight, and I want to get a take on your opinion on this. When the OT comes into the school and they, give strategies, do you communicate with the parents at home about doing some of those exercises with their children?
It depends on the parent and how involved they are with their child.
That's key.
Some parents, yes. And I feel that is very important because what you do at school should translate over to the home, because students are home half the time and at school the other half the time. So if it doesn't translate over, for instance, summer vacation, they have 2 months that they're not at school. So if the parents aren't carrying through with it, then once they come back, the student has regressed.
You know what, and I've seen that, and it's almost as if like on the last day of school, we're writing home that last note in the communication book, and by the way, please, follow through on some of the activities that the OT has recommended. How many students at your school have specialized equipment?
Many of the students. The school that I currently work at, all students do have cognitive disabilities, and many of them do have physical disabilities. So out of our 15 classes, out of some classes, all the students, if there's medically fragile room, they all have different equipment because they're in their chairs, so they do a lot of therapy with that and keep their movement. And other students that have different disabilities in the other classrooms do have devices and require equipment.
And to add to that, I think oftentimes people have this misbelief that, OTs are only meant in the workplace. Well, we use OTs very much within the school board system, and things like a Hoyer lift or specialized stairs or chairs, even specialized forks, spoons, mats to place food on, or their bowls. Those are all things that an OT would recommend to our student, but I'm not going to give you all the information just yet. When we have our special guest coming on later, she will touch base on a lot of the tools that we encounter in our day-to-day work and some of the exercises, and maybe clarifying the confusion that some people have on the role of an OT. So once again, thank you, Susan, for being our expert on A Voice for All.
Thanks for having me.
If you like Susan, we'll bring her back if you guys like her. It's always good to get a take on, from a teacher in the community on how each of these episodes apply to your students. So after the break, we are going to go back to the streets and hear what you have to say. I want you to start thinking from now before we go to commercials. If you saw somebody having a seizure, would you know what to do? If you do, if you don't, let me know. Tweet me at MissJamsPCCS. I want to hear what you have to say. After the break, we're going to go to the streets, hear how would you handle a seizure? Would you know how to recognize it? This is A Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila Gamble. Hello and welcome back to A Voice for All. Thank you for tuning in. If you're just joining us, you are in for a great show. Before we went to the break, I was giving you guys the cue to our segment where we go to the streets and ask you what you have to say. If you ever see us out and about, maybe downtown Brampton, maybe in Mississauga, and you see that lovely red logo, do not be afraid. Come up to us. We love to hear what you have to say. And if you don't get to see us on the street, feel free to tweet me at Miss Jams PCSS, or you can email me at missjams.pcss@gmail.com. So the question of the week is, if you saw somebody having a seizure, would you know what to do? Oftentimes people believe that if they see somebody having a seizure, they have to, hold them down or put something in their mouth. What would you do? I've been in situations, because it is my job. I know how to handle seizures. I know what the first day requirements are. But talking to some of the residents on the street, there was a split between what do I do if I saw somebody having a seizure. If you do not know what to do, I urge you to, whether it's take a first aid course or to go on Google and do your own personal research, but it's very important that we as a community know what to do if we ever see an emergency situation like that. So let's go to the streets and hear what you have to say.
No, I wouldn't know what to do if I saw someone having a seizure.
I wouldn't know what to do. I've never experienced it before, so I'm no training at all.
First, I would make sure the person has an open space where they're not going to be injuring themselves or hitting themselves onto anything, and then make sure that someone calls the emergency or I call the emergency. But also you need to make sure that their head is kind of if you could put something soft underneath their head without touching them or anything like that. They say put something around their mouth, but I wouldn't even do that. Just make sure that they're in a safe area and nothing is going to hurt them, and call the emergency right away.
If I saw somebody having a seizure, I would call 911.
If I saw someone having a seizure, I'd probably call 911.
I would call and yell for help, because I wouldn't know exactly what to do and I wouldn't want to mess anything up. So I'd try and get someone else that knows what they're doing.
I'd go over to them, make sure there's something under their head so they don't hit their head off the ground, like a pillow or something soft. Wait for them to stop seizing, and then check the breathing, check all that.
If I saw someone having a seizure, I think the most important thing is to call for help as soon as you can if you don't know what to do. Yeah, that's basically it. I don't know what to do, so I would call for help.
If someone is having a seizure, first of all, hopefully they're laying down. Try to move anything out of their path. Do not try to restrain them.
Welcome back, and thank you to the residents who gave us a moment of their time. The number one response, and it's okay, it really is okay, that I heard was, I would not know what to do. Seizures aren't something we see every day. Especially because I'm in the field, I know what to do. So if I saw someone in the community, I would be able to step in. But really, a lot of us would not know what to do. It is a very scary thing to witness, but I will let you know this quickly. If you do see someone having a seizure, especially if they're convulsing, please call 911. Please ensure that their head is safe. Do not put anything in their mouth. They're not going to swallow their tongue. A lot of people have this myth that they've heard that, they might bite their tongue off and swallow it. No, they will not do that. Please do not restrain them, because chances are if you are holding them down while they're convulsing, they're going to sustain further injuries. A lot of times people have gotten bruises, head injuries, scratches, because people feel that, oh, he's flopping on the ground, I don't want him to hurt himself. The chances of him hurting himself are greater if they are being held down. So I encourage you to, go to first aid courses. The Brampton YMCA offers them. St. John's offers them. It's important that we know what to do if we saw someone having a medical emergency, whether it's a seizure, it could be an asthma attack. As a community, I think people who have, say, epilepsy would feel a lot safer knowing that residents around them would know what to do if they saw somebody having a seizure. So for those of you who are watching who say, hey, I don't know what to do, that's okay. Don't have to feel bad about it. We're here to help. We're here to educate you. And if you ever have any questions, like I said, Miss Jams PCCS, you could tweet me and let me know. After the break, we're going to have a guest. And thank you for tuning in to Miss Jam on Voice for All. When's the Elvis Fest? This weekend?
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow. Oh, it's just one day?
No, it's all weekend, but it starts tomorrow. So I'm
Hello, welcome back to The Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila, and I now have my guest, Miss Michelle Morgani, who is an OT. Do you work solely for the school board, or is there an organization you work for?
I actually work with an organization called St. Elizabeth Healthcare.
Okay.
And we are contracted out by the Community Care Access Center, the CCAC, with the referrals to go into the school boards.
Ah,
yes.
You're CCAC.
Yes. So we get hired on through CCAC. They receive the referral from the school, and then they pass it along to us at St. Elizabeth.
Now let's go back to referrals. Oftentimes, I think some parents believe that, okay, my child has a disability, so automatically they should get OT.
Yeah, and unfortunately it doesn't really work that way unless they're coming in into JK where they've been pre-screened by another organization. Typically what happens with the students is that they are the school actually has to make the referral, so the school has to put forth all the applications. So they're the ones that indicate that there's an issue, and that's the only way that we'll be able to know that there's things going on with that particular student. So typically what would happen is the school makes that referral, and then we are able to see the clients. Otherwise, unfortunately, we don't have access to seeing some of those clients if there isn't a referral made.
Okay, so how does a student become qualified? What's the criteria for a student?
There's actually many different things that a student can be referred for. We do anything from fine motor skills, printing, writing, and technology access. So kids are able to access the curriculum and maintain their school productivity. And additionally, we work on anything from equipment needs, so things particularly related to washroom. So we do a lot of special washroom equipment to make sure that it's a safe environment for that particular child. So in terms of even classroom accessibility, making sure they have a proper desk and proper seating as well to maintain their safety. So really the referrals can be anything from a child who just is having basic visual motor and fine motor impairments, anything up to children who have cerebral palsy, muscular dystrophy, Down syndrome. We do deal with quite the spectrum of disabilities. It just, again, depends upon who makes the referral, so it depends on who is actually going to be able to get services.
So focusing on adaptability and modification.
Absolutely. Basically, we really want to make sure that the student is safe in the environment and the student is able to access the environment. So we want to make sure that they're able to stay as productive a part of the school environment as every other student as well.
That's fantastic, because I'm sure, especially in JKSK.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's their child's, first year coming in, and parents might have all these worries about safety and if their child could interact with their peers, if they could sit at the same table. I'm sure you kind of ease that worry.
Absolutely.
That
the one good thing that's so great is that what we've been, the last few years has been wonderful, is that we've actually had access to knowing which JK kids are coming in earlier. So we're able to actually see them either at the end of June before they start school or even the last week of August before they start school, so we can really make sure that they have all the accommodations that are needed, all the modifications and all the equipment. So when they start school, typically on a staggered entry in September, we're able to manage their entry with all the proper equipment and all the proper needs. We are primarily consulting with the families as well, so it's great because that's a great opportunity for us to actually sit down with the families and actually get a good idea of what the child's doing at home, what their expectations are of what they'll be able to do at school. So it's kind of a nice balance to get to see them prior to actually even entering the school system, which is really great.
So with parents, I know oftentimes, with some of the parents I work with, we tell them, hey, we're doing A, B, and C at school. Can you practice the same things at home?
Yes.
What is the importance of parents practicing the same things that you may be referring to the child at school?
I would say it's probably one of the most crucial parts of what we do. What's happening is we go into the school as more of a consultant. So we're going in, we don't get to do a lot of direct treatment with the children anymore, just the way services have changed. So as a consultant, we're going in and we're talking to school staff, we're talking to all the support staff. Then what we'll do is we'll make sure that we write up a visit note, or we even make a phone call to the parents to to reiterate
Perfect.
exactly what's been going on at school.
Perfect.
Because the one big thing we need to ensure that the child's getting what they need is carryover. I think the biggest part of it is if a child is doing one thing at school but not doing it at home, we're really having a disconnect and we're not necessarily getting the skills that we really want to see building upon. Even simple things like dressing. We work a lot with teaching staff is a big one.
Yes.
Teaching staff, TAs, ERWs, to make sure that they allow the child to have more independence. So letting them put on their own coat, even if it takes them, 10 minutes. It can be frustrating, but
Sure.
the staff have been able to put that into their day. But if they go home and then mom and dad are dressing them before school, it really, again, there's that disconnect. And it's really hard that that child's going to really learn to do it for themselves if they're not having that consistency between both school and home.
So if you are starting all these things, say in grade 1 or JKSK, how many years of service is the child technically qualified for?
There isn't really a constant. I think at this point it really depends on the severity of the child's needs. What is, as of right now, in Peel particularly, we are sort of authorized sort of a 6-visit model to start off with.
6 for the year?
6 for a year.
Wow.
So 6 to 8 visits approximately. Typically it's 6. But with that being said, that's why we are consulting. We're trying to give as much information on one visit as we can possibly give you. That's why we write everything down. We give you lots of handouts. And again, we really need that carryover with family and school to ensure that things are being done, because we don't really get the opportunity to go in constantly constantly follow up and monitor, which is unfortunate, but we rely on the school staff a lot to really help carry out a lot of our goals for the occupational therapy. Like I said, with dressing, just academics, print, especially the printing piece, we give them a lot of strategies on how to print. The problem being that if it's not carried over at home through homework and other areas, it doesn't translate into the classroom. So we really want to make sure, again, with that short visit model, that we're able to get as much out of it as possible.
So speaking about strategies, you mentioned pencil and printing. What's something a parent, maybe if they're watching now, they could start doing with their child at home?
Very basic. I mean, just working on basic shapes, lines and circles and squares. That's all over the basic, the pre-printing. When it comes to actual printing, we always start with uppercase letters because they're the most linear. They're the easiest for kids to learn. Another great strategy is the 3-line paper. So it's the straight line with a little dotted line in the middle, and then another bottom line, because it really allows the child to see the sizes of their letters and exactly where they need to fall on the line. A lot of our JKs are starting to just learn how to print their name. So even just starting before they get to school, learning how to spell their name, learning how to print their name is such a great way. Yeah, because again, it's that independent skill that they can write their own name, which is such an excellent thing for them, obviously, to be able to do.
Now, we had a guest a little while back, and they were talking about special applications. Now, have you, as an OT, ever worked with a student who might have, say, a communication device, or, giving them modifications or tools that will help them better use their...
Absolutely. It's not something we do every single day, but it's definitely something that has come up quite often. A lot of children are using the tablets and the iPads now. In many of the different boards, it's becoming a trial to see which students benefit from it the most. So there's a lot of apps that are available, printing apps, again, just basic, cause and effect type apps. So for those children to kind of learn the basic skills, but there's also special modifications to adapt those iPads, putting it on a wheelchair, for instance.
Yeah, I was going to say, like a slam board.
There's actual special, there's actual special adaptations that can be made so that that iPad can be attached to a wheelchair. It could be attached to a stander. It could be attached to any particular area that child is working in on a daily basis.
So there's no limit. There's no stopping a child that, okay, I have cerebral palsy, or I may not have fine motor skills, and that's not going to stop me from, doing A, B, and C.
No. And one of the things that can be, it can be tricky is because some of the really high-end equipment does get done through an outside agency, not necessarily through us and through CCAC. Yeah, so parents do have to kind of look and explore other options as well, because there are other programs, a program called ADRS, and they actually do a lot of work.
Now, what does ADRS stand for?
It is the Assistive Device Resource Program. Yes. Yes. So, and what they do is they actually do a lot of technology assessment and technology mounting. So they do another piece to that puzzle that's not necessarily done at school, but is done at home, and then it's translated into school. So they either get to bring that piece of equipment back and forth, or what we do is we make sure it's working, and then we let the school boards know, hey, this is working at home. Is it something that we could possibly look at getting for school as well. So one of the great things is that we get to make a lot of really cool recommendations. So we tell parents, you know, go here, do this, try that. The only setback can be that we're not the ones who make the final decision on equipment and things like that. So that's a little bit of a disconnect again through the agencies and how things aren't quite cohesive yet, but we are hoping to get there. Yeah, absolutely, because we are making those recommendations for the children's best needs.
And that's amazing to see, because even working in the school board, you know, I have a student, and Michelle actually knows this student, and he does have a physical disability, but because of some of the recommendations Michelle's given and, you know, the PT has given, we have been able to allow him to be fully integrated into his classroom. There has been no doors or walls.
Which is exactly what we want. We want the children to be as flourishing in their environment as their peers. So, and we want them to interact with their peers as much as possible too. And the one thing that's so great is that the kids always think it's so cool when something new comes
they want to get into it.
They all want to know what's going on, and which is so wonderful to see.
So Michelle has brought up some really good points. Parents, if you have a child who's starting off into the school system, get on top of things. Ask your principal what is the process. How long is it going to take to get an OT in? You'll be amazed as to what your child could really do at school once those recommendations come in. If you need any information, maybe you want to get in touch with Michelle, you could contact me at missjams.pcss, and I'll be delighted to share that information with you. Thank you, Michelle, for being a guest on A Voice for All. I'm your host, Jamila Gamble, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into A Voice for All. I am your host, Jamila Gamble. We just had Michelle Morgani, who is an OT. She does work for the Peel District School Board, and she gave us some great information, especially to parents, on the procedure and the process on how to acquire OT services for their child. She was talking about some of the equipment that parents will, be using with their children, but she really stressed on the importance of parents continuing what the teachers and the staff are doing at school and bringing it home. If you want to see that success, if you want to see your child reach their full potential, whatever the referrals or the suggestions that perhaps an OT like Michelle may be giving you or the TA may be giving you, please follow through. That's one of the key ways that you're going to see the full potential in your child. And it all starts with your school principal. Let your school principal know that you want your child to acquire these services and get the ball rolling. That's how the success goes about. That's how your child is able to be fully integrated into their classroom setting. And just to touch base back on our segment where we went out to the community and asked if you knew what to do for a seizure, I just want to touch base on that one more time. Please call 911. Ensure that the person is in a safe environment. Do not restrain them. Do not put anything in their mouth. And most importantly for yourself, stay calm. Those around you, the individual, if they see you panicking, it really heightens the situation. So remember to stay calm. You're doing a good thing helping this person. And by all means, if you need more information, you could go on Google. You could go to St. John's Ambulance for more training. If you need any of that information, I'd be delighted to share with you. And you can email me at missjams.pcss@gmail.com. We've had a fantastic show. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our expert, Susan, who joined us in the beginning. This has been A Voice for All. I'm your host, Jamila Gamble, and I'll see you next time.